Welcome back to Motorsport and Scale. In today's episode, we're going to be working on the model Factory Hiro Maserati 250F. Today, we're going to be working on, as you can see here, the brakes, the exhaust, and the fuel tank and the oil tank. So this will take us through, let's get those out of the way. It'll get us through step 20 there. That's just the exhaust and the brakes. And steps 21, we've already built the tank, so it's just a matter of finishing off and getting them installed in the chassis in step 22. And then it'll be on to the bodywork. So you might have noticed one thing with the fuel tank here is it's pink. I originally thought that, you know, the Streamliner and the non-Streamliner would be the same. Everything underneath the skin would be the same. But looking at some pictures of the two cars, it looks like the shape of the fuel tank was different. So originally I was going to paint it red because with the assumption that it would have been just a regular car turned into the Streamliner because it was just used in one race. But after seeing those pictures, I'm not going to paint it red. I'm going to do it in bare aluminum. And yeah, so anyways, that's why it's pink. It's not going to remain pink any much longer, but I'll get this cleaned off and then we'll get back and start working on a few things here. Probably start with the brakes first and go from there. So we'll see what needs to be cleaned up, and actually the brakes look like they're going to be fairly straightforward. Not much cleanup is needed. The one thing I don't know if you can see this. Let's try to zoom in. What these are, it's obviously the brake drum, but the inner part will be steel or cast iron, probably cast iron, and that extends out to these parts here that sort of scallop out. That's all part of the liner, and then the rest of it is all cast aluminum, which is cast around the cast iron. So these parts here will be aluminum. This part here will be the cast iron. So I want this surface here to be like a machine surface, and everything else is just going to be left cast. So all I'm doing is just on some sanding sticks here. Let's get that zoomed back out. Starting with the 400 just so it gets it done pretty quick. Have a look to make sure that you've got the hole all the way around, flat. It looks good, and just a couple swipes with the 600. Give it a turn. And do the 800. So that just cleans up those edges, makes it nice and crisp and flat. I'm going to paint this, but it'll give a good foundation for the paint and the separation, different colors. So yeah, just doing that. And the other thing I did was, like, these are, I'm not sure if they would have been cast in or drilled in later, but the vent holes for cooling and to let brake dust and whatever escape. They're pretty rough cast on these, so I just went through. This is just a diamond burr, tapered burr. I just went through and cleaned them all up. I've already done that to them all. So yeah, that's about it for cleaning this up. Just this end here. There's and I've also drilled the holes out for this. There's going to be the threads, come on, go in there, and that's what the wheel nut will bolt onto. So those will have to get probably I'll epoxy those in. So that's about it for cleaning up the drums. So they'll be pretty quick. I'm just going to go through and do all those. The backing plates, they're pretty clean. I'll just have to, the parting line here. Excuse me. It isn't bad, but I'll just give it a clean up. These, on all the reference pictures I've seen, were painted black. So this is the inside, this is the outside. That's where it mounts to the hubs, is these four pins here, which is not ideal. Like, so there's a bolt that goes through here that bolts it to the hub, or to the drum. So this will become a solid piece, essentially, with the brake shoes inside, which you'll be able to see them a little bit through these vents. So they're not a total waste of time to detail up half decently. And then obviously the wheel bolts to here. So like the wheel and the drum and the backing plate will become one solid unit that's fairly robust. It'll be all bolted together. But then when you attach this to the vehicle, it's just sitting on these four pins, which, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like the car is going to sit on the pedestals anyways, or at least two of them in the middle of the car. So not all the weight will be borne by these, but it's still not super good. But anyways, I'm going to get going on cleaning that up. The brake shoes, they're pretty good. This is the inside, so you will see the inside of these because you see them through the vents. Like you'd have to be a bit of a contortionist to get down and see that, but they're still somewhat visible, so I'll detail them up, but they're not really any cleanup needed. I'll just get rid of this big burr on here, but you're not going to be able to obviously see the surface of the pads, but I'll just give that a scrape over. Maybe leave it a little rough to make them look like used brake shoes. So yeah, not a whole lot involved in cleaning all this stuff up, which is good because I'm getting sick of cleaning white metal on this kit. So it'll be nice once I'm get all this done. There's still a few more bits to clean after this, but we're getting really close. So anyways, I'm going to carry on getting all this cleaned up, and then I'll probably see you over in the paint booth next. See you in a bit. Alright, just getting a bit of metal primer. Not much to see here, but just thought I'd show you. I'm still using the spray cans. Oh, I got no fucking mic on here. Anyways. It is getting the brake components painted up and whatnot. So I decided I'd throw the camera on, show you a little bit of how I do this kind of stuff. So right now, as you can see, I'm just I need to mask off the spindles to paint them a different color of the drums, because the spindles are bolted on. They'd be steel, and obviously the drum's aluminum, so it'd be a little bit different color. You're never going to see these once it's all assembled, but I'll take photographs of this assembled without the wheels on, sitting on jack stands or something. So anyways, I just thought I'd do it. So I just use the most basic circle cutter in the world. These things are a major pain in the butt. They work. They take a little bit of dicking around with them to get them to set up to cut the the diameter you want. What I usually do is I'll measure the part with my calipers, divide that into, reset my calipers and lock them, and then on this end of the caliper I'll just set the tool with it here, and then do a cut, see if it's the right size, and adjust whichever way. I happen to luck out on this one and got it pretty much exactly first time, so that was good. Anyways, yeah, just getting this stuff masked off. Pretty straightforward, really. Nothing. I usually don't show this kind of stuff because it's pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot to really talk about. But anyways, I'm going to carry on with those. I've also got the brake disc, or the brake shoes, masked up, ready to go. So I painted the brake pads first, a little bit of masking tape, and then I use some masking fluid just to get the parts that are hard to tape. So I've got that all done. So now I'll paint the body of the shoe, or whatever. I'll paint it an aluminum color, and then I'll come back and hand paint some of the parts that are supposed to be black. So anyways, that's what I'm working on. I've got the backing plates here, they're done. I'll come back and do a little bit of weathering on them, but for the most part they're ready to go. So yeah, just thought I'd show you that little bit of work, and here's some of the tools I use for this kind of stuff. Nothing terribly fancy. I don't know, like there's some circle cutters out there, some really nice ones that use a bearing and everything. I think Dispay makes one, but they're really expensive. They're like $70 or $80 or something like that. I don't know. I just can't seem to justify spending that much money to cut a circle on a piece of tape. So we're just carrying on with this thing. It works. I don't know, one day, eventually I want to get, I don't have one, as a silhouette cutter, like a plotter cutter, because then you could do this kind of stuff, but you could also do stencils, like for masking, numbers, stuff like that. So eventually I do want to get one of those, but space is always a consideration. I don't have a ton of space for big bulky tools, so anyways, we'll carry on. I will see you over in the paint booth. We'll throw some more paint on, and then back at the bench here. All right, we got all the brakes painted up, so time to assemble some stuff. Yeah, I think I did a little bit of work off camera. I did a bit of detail painting, a bit of dry brushing, put a bit of patina on the parts. Anyway, we zoom in a little, look at the parts. So yeah, the brake shoes. I obviously painted the brake pads, sort of a off blackish brown color. The casting is aluminum. I used like a dark aluminum, and then I sprayed it with some a mix of clear brown and clear dark red to simulate the sort of varnish that they use on brake pads to seal the friction material onto the backing plate. So you'll often see that even on modern pads, you'll see a sort of a reddish brown varnish that they paint them with. I think it's a couple that sort of seals the edge, and it also provides an anti-corrosive agent. So anyways, I did that, got the drums sort of all detailed up and painted. A little bit of dry brushing to sort of differentiate the color between the steel of the actual drum and the aluminum of the casting. So, and the steel of the spindle there, I did that a little bit different color. So yeah, it all turned out pretty good. A little bit of weathering on it, a bit of wash. So anyways, not much to these, and we're not going to see much of these once they're all done. I'm going to zoom back out a bit so it's... Hopefully my head doesn't get in the way. I tend to lean forward. I apologize for that, but I'm just using a bit of slow setting thick CA for this. See if I can do this. So all these parts are the same. So they all have the same problem. What's going on here is the, so let me get this in place. two casting lugs. There's one here that the pad sits on. This one, I just happen to have them all orientated the exact same way because they're the same either way. But the casting on this side is like the mold was torn, so it's kind of missing is basically what's happened here. So the pads all want to fall over to the side. They won't stay up where they're supposed to, so I'm just using that paper to keep them in place while it dries. This one fell out. That's this thick CA is really slow setting, so it takes a bit of time. So anyways, it's just some of the little things you always have to be looking out for. The alignment, that's kind of why I'm using this thick CA. Sort of gap filling properties. But the drawback of it is it takes so long to set up that you kind of need to watch out for that kind of stuff. Like if I used a quick setting CA, I could just hold it for a few seconds and it would be fine, but it won't be as strong. The other advantage is this, because it doesn't set up, it takes so long to set up that it'll dissolve the paint and get right down to the base material. So I don't have to worry too much about that. Not that it really matters if these are crooked, a little canted to the side. I don't think it would really matter. Sorry, my head's probably totally in the way. All right, leave that sit to dry, and then we'll get on to the next step. Alright, so we got the brakes all done. I think the only thing I didn't shoot was I added the brake hose that'll go to the chassis. So that's the only piece here that isn't included in the kit, so I just used some 0.65 detail wire from Tamiya. So anyways, they are all done, looking pretty good. So we'll put those aside now, and then we'll start working on the fuel tank. So I will get this cleaned up, and I'll see you back at the bench here in a sec with the fuel tank. As you can see, we get it all painted. Next thing I'm going to be doing, just a little bit of assembly, and then doing some weathering on it. So I use this stuff a lot. Hopefully that's not glaring. It's just the Mr. Hobby weathering colors. Multi-black, it's sort of a good all-arounder. They have a dark stained brown as well, which works really good on metallic colors, to sort of give them a bit of a different luster as well. So I use that one quite a bit too. This time I'm just going to use black though. I'm going to use black first, and then I will probably clear coat it with a dull coat, and then I'll come back with some of the dark brown, sort of give it some fuel leak stain type of effects. I just wanted to get these glued in first. You'll happen to notice I use a lot of Mr. Hobby products. It's not because I think they're the best thing out there, it's just that one of my local hobby shops stocks a ton of Mr. Hobby products, so. And they have a really good variety of different stuff, so that's the rationale. It's nothing more than that. Don't really have any brand loyalty, not promoting anybody, just what I happen to have open right now, so that's what I've been using. I find for the weathering products, this one acts more like an oil paint when you use it as wash. By that, I don't know if you haven't used oil paints for washes. When you reduce them really thin like this, you can blend them and work them with a dry brush or a wet brush, and you can work them really well and blend them in. Versus something like Tamiya's panel line wash, I find that it won't do that. You'll just, like if you try to wet blend it, you'll just soak it up and it disappears. Or if you try to, and it doesn't really dry blend very well. So this stuff kind of acts like an oil wash more than an enamel wash, which the Tamiya stuff is enamel for sure. So this might be more of an oil paint. I don't know. That's the rumor I've heard, but anyway, so what's nice about that is I'll come in afterwards when this is dry, after a couple hours. Even a day later, you can't leave it too long, but you can come in with a big, like, filbert brush, and you can just blend this in, and instead of it just being like a wash, you can do some like oil paint rendering with it, so that's kind of nice about it. One of the things I like. But it doesn't act very well as a panel wash. Like trying to do panel lining with this, I find it doesn't do it as good as the Tamiya stuff. So if all I'm doing is panel lines, I'll use the Tamiya. If I want to come in and kind of blend this afterwards, I'll use this stuff. So that's sort of my decision-making process around which of the two products I'll use. Or I'll actually make an oil wash out of oil paint if I want to do some real blending and oil paint rendering, so to speak. But I don't typically weather my automotive stuff enough to warrant getting into full-on oil paint rendering. Like maybe if I do a barn find or something like that, I'll do that kind of stuff, but typically that's not the look I go for. I usually go for, and this is personal preference, I usually go for, an in-use, mid-season, whatever type of scenario. The car has been used, it's been apart, it's been together, but it's clean. It's, sort of qualifying trim type of scenario, before they get out there. But it shows signs of use and wear. It's kind of the look I just personally like, so that's what I typically build to. Anyways, tons of surface detail on this thing, so this is going to take a little while. So I'm going to carry on, and I'll check in with you in a bit. All right, so it's sat and dried for a bit, a couple hours here. So I just come in with a fairly big brush and just sort of stipple it, and this will, because I don't really want to remove anything, and I want to tarnish the metal in this case. So, I'll just use whatever excess there is will blend out and just soften it up and give it a nice look. So, how long you work this for kind of determines the look you're going to get. And since it's dry, you're not really going to get, it takes some time. It takes a while to sort of blend it down and soften it up. So, and that's good. Like if you're trying to do this with a damp brush or damp cotton buds to wipe off the excess and just leave it in the recesses, I find that leaves it a little bit too harsh of a finish, and especially on metallics like this being what I'm assuming was raw aluminum fuel tank exposed to the elements. It would have got stained, and so it wouldn't have any luster. So this is going to help sort of knock down the reflectivity of the aluminum. So yeah, I'm just going to carry on doing all this, although I'm almost done. This part doesn't really take very long. You got to be kind of careful handling it. If you got oily skin, it has a tendency to lift off the wash more. You know, it's still going to lift off. You got to be careful, like I say. But if you have naturally oily skin, it does it even quicker. So just got to be a little careful. And under here I found my paint was a little rough, so it kind of soaked into the paint a bit, but I'm not too concerned about it because you'll be able to see just a little bit from the sides, but you won't be able to really see into this, so I'm not too worried about that. Yeah, that's all there is to that step. Now I'm going to come in with some stained brown, like I was talking about before. Can you see that? Stained brown for simulate some, you know, where fuel would have been spilling and that. I'm not really going to go for like running. I'm just going to accent sort of those areas a little bit of brown, and I'm also going to use some multi-gray. And that kind of helps, like where the aluminum's gone really dark now, this will help bring some of that back up. So I just do a couple, well, you'll see, I'll do a couple dots, sort of not in on the rivets or anything, but in the middle of the panels, and blend that in. So first we'll do the brown. If we can open it. See, and I'm just going to be putting this around here for now. I'm trying not to get really into the panel lines. Because I don't want to pull the black out of there. And just giving it a bit of staining, right? The brown, this is like plenty. Some of the back where the oil would be. A little tank on the back is an oil tank for the engine. And this is a bit of the gray. Just a couple of random spots. Not too much of this. Alright, I'll leave that to dry, not for very long though. I just want it to more or less not be shiny anymore. And that's when I'll come in and I'll start blending that. And I'll get a different brush and I'll show you what that'll look like here once this is dried a bit. So back in a bit. Alright, so I'll try to do a little blending here. So it's all dried. I let it dry a little longer, but as you can see, it is still pretty pretty easy to move around. Sort of blend in here a bit. And I probably got a little more than I want, so I'm just going to make it a bit dirty, and I might come through and get rid of a bit. But as you can see, I switched to a smaller brush. It's a little bit more controllable. Just sort of keep working it to get the effect you want. I just want this top bit to be like stained a little bit from spilt fuel and whatnot. Now I do have a little bit of thinner here. Now this is, it can be a bit of an all or nothing kind of thing. So what I usually do is just stipple it. Okay, so what I'm using for thinner is, again, Mr. Hobby. This stuff is designed for this weathering panel liner, or whatever you want to call it. I've used odorless thinner as well. I've never tried it with enamel thinners, but I like this stuff because it doesn't, another thing I like about the Mr. Hobby stuff compared to the Tamiya is it doesn't have that harsh enamel smell. So it's not so hard on you when you're using it. Whereas I find enamels give me a headache. So I'm just sort of stippling, trying to get rid of the brush strokes, make it just more stained rather than, like, I'm not really looking for streakiness, just a bit of staining. Yeah, so between the three colors, it's quite subtle now. But between the three colors I put on, the black, the brown, and the gray, it's just sort of all kind of work together to just give it a bit of a distressed look to it, but not filthy. Just kind of what I'm going for. Yeah, so I think that's looking okay. Blend out the back part and should be okay. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to leave that to dry up, and then I'll probably do a bit of more on the bottom, and then get this part all assembled. There's a couple, there's a little catch tank and some oil lines that I have to go on, so that'll be up next. We'll see you in a bit. Alright, so I've got the tank all buttoned up and installed on the chassis. I still got to do the two straps. So there's a strap that goes around it there and there. Got a photo etch. So other than that, tank's done. I just went ahead off camera and there's some plumbing. The seat's not bolted in. It's going to fall out. Some plumbing there in the back, a little catch tank and so forth. Some plumbing on the side here as well. So it was pretty fiddly to do, so it was pretty hard to get any decent footage of that. So I just went ahead and got her done. So that is that. So next I'm going to do those straps. Like I say, they're photo etched, but I'm not quite sure what they're made out of in real life. I can't find any pictures of them. I doubt they'd be totally shiny stainless steel, so I'll probably do them in a flat black. But anyways, I'll go ahead and get those done, and then next up after that, once I get that done, we have the brakes done, is the exhaust. So I got that. Just the tailpipe piece is a separate brass piece you glue on here. I got a body work. This part's all exposed. It sits outside of the body somewhere around here. So I'll have to clean this all up and body work this a little bit. There's a bit of a step, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of work there, and then the exhaust pipes themselves are actually pretty good. Not much work needed there. Just clean up some casting seam lines and so forth. So, and those will be done in like a high temperature black. That'll a little bit of distressing on that. So anyways, I just wanted to show you the progress with the tank on. It's coming together. We're getting close to the end, so I'm getting pretty excited to see this thing finished. So anyways, I'm going to get the photo etch done for the straps. Not really going to film any of that. I'll show you the finished product on here. I'll do a check-in on the exhaust here in a bit, and we'll see you then. So we'll see you in a bit. All right, so there we have it. I've got everything together on the chassis. Yeah, I went ahead. I think the last I saw, we were probably working on the fuel tank. We had it installed. I went ahead and got the straps installed off camera. I wasn't quite sure what to do with them color-wise. I have no reference pictures for them, so all I essentially did was their photo etch is I heat stained them. What I was attempting to do was anneal them so they'd be easier to form, but thinking it was nickel silver, but it's not. It's stainless, so they didn't really anneal very well or at all. But they'd heat stain, so that's sort of this brown color that it ended up being on them, which looks okay. You know, I just sort of rubbed it down. It gives it a nice sort of a patinaed look to some sort of steel strap that they were potentially. A lot better than being this shiny stainless, in my opinion. So anyways, that's what I did there. And then the other thing you'll see on here is we have the exhaust done and mounted. So I just did it in a off black color. I did a couple things here. Wasn't really much to show. Very similar to the way I sort of did the patina and the weathering on the tank is I did the same on the exhaust, except it starts off black. So it's a little more subtle because of that. But it's basically, I think I painted it rubber black first, the whole thing. And then I came with some flat black that was fairly high diluted and just gave it some highlights. It's more probably noticeable in the exhaust pipe. I left the end of the exhaust more black, and it sort of fades to more of the rubber black the further in it goes, where it'd be more affected by heat. And also, darker on the end where soot would gather. So anyways, I did that. Excuse me, with the black on top of the rubber black, and then I came in afterwards with some light gray weathering enamels, and just sort of splotched that around on it, and then I just did it the exact same way I did the tank, where you just work it off basically, just to leave a bit of tonal variation with that, and then a coat of matte clear coat to seal it all in, and that's all I've done to the exhaust. You're not really going to see much of that. End of the day, the hood opening is, I think, about that wide, so you'll see a bit of the exhaust. You can't really see the exhaust through any of the openings in the body, so it'll be a lot of work for not much. And this part of the exhaust, the tailpipe, attaches to the body, so when you put the body down, where it kind of joins up there isn't terribly critical, because you cannot see that at all. Even if you're trying to look in from the cockpit, I don't think you'd really be able to see that, because it's up above the opening almost. So anyways, that's the way the kit's designed, that's the way it's going together in this particular case. So that is that. I've got the brakes. We saw the building of the brakes and all that, but I got them installed on the chassis. I ran the brake lines and attached those. I don't know if you can really see them. I guess you can kind of see a brake line there. Kind of see them there. You get it to focus in more on the brake lines at the back there. Maybe not. I might be messing around with my camera rig and my overhead setup, and I might actually have my minimum focus distance a little too small when I'm zoomed in. So hopefully it's going to be in focus. If not, I'll have to reshoot this. So anyways, that's it for the chassis. The chassis is done. That has got us to the end. Let's just get this stuff out of the way. So that has got us to the end of step 22, essentially. Obviously, the bottom piece, which is painted red, that is not installed yet, but I consider that part of the body. So anyways, we're completely done to the end of step 22. So that's going to be a wrap for this episode. One thing I didn't mention was you might have noticed and think, well, you're not done. Well, you left the fillers off. And that's right. So I decided to leave them off. There's little standoffs, like the pipe, and then there's the cap itself, which is supposed to be done at this point. But I left them off to better facilitate the fitting of the body. I didn't want them sticking up and being in the way, because obviously the body's got to, they stick through the body. So I'll get the rear part of the body, or the body, all mounted, and then I'll glue them. And that'll do a couple things. It'll make it easier to put the bottom or the back piece on, and it'll make it so that I can get the alignment right, so I can get it centered in the hole a lot better. Because once they're on, I'm pretty sure, even if you made this body so that you conceivably could take it off, I bet you can't, because of those, if they're glued in place. So I'll get them aligned once the body's installed, and I think that'll look the best, and it'll be the easiest way to deal with that. So yeah, that's about it. Next up is the bodywork. So that'll be our next episode. We'll flip over the page and we'll get started on the bodywork, step 23. Let's see if I can get the exposure looking a little bit better with the big white page on there. That should be a bit better, hopefully. Anyways, yeah, that's the next step, is getting onto the body work. So basically, 2 things left to do. That's going to be the body work, get that all painted and deckled, and then the wheels. That'll be a fun one, getting those done, and then it's the final assembly. So that's it. So 2 main building steps, and then it's just putting it together after that. So yeah, that's what we got to look forward to. We're almost done. I'm excited about that. It's been a while on this project. I had a bit of a break. Had some personal life issues in there. So anyways, thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.